think now, like, I was super ready to record this video until it came time to actually hit record, and now I'm not sure how to actually start this. I don't know what to say. Hi, YouTube. Hi, Booktube friends. I guess we're not friends yet, but I think we will be soon, hopefully, if you like my content that I'm going to be putting on here. But hi, acquaintances, something. Fellow readers, crafters, disabled people. I don't know. I'll workshop it. I found this tag. Well, I didn't find this tag. My friend Alex from the channel Soulfully Alex found this tag because their friend Jada from Jay's Bookiverse, which I had actually started following after Alex sent me this video, did this tag. And I was like, that looks fun. I want to try it. Um, which Alex is awesome. They are my co-host on And They Weren't Roommates, which is a podcast that we're launching soon. We have some short content uploaded. Depending on when this goes up, our first episode might be up. I'm not really sure. Um, but anyway, Alex sent me the video that Jay's Bookiverse did, and I was like, that's awesome. I want to do the same thing, and I've been meaning to start my own channel for a while, so that kind of felt like the push that I needed to just like go with it. Um, so I'm gonna kind of like do that, I guess. Um, so I should probably start with like who I am, what I'm about, where I live, like a little bit about me. I'm JR, like people kind of call me either one. I live in the Kansas City area. I am an author and I guess soon to be podcast host. And I am an avid reader, an avid crafter, a parent. I'm autistic and physically disabled. I have mobility conditions that cause a lot of issues there. I have MCAS, so I have a lot of allergies that kind of pop up from time to time, and are kind of various degrees of difficult to deal with. Um, and so I feel like calling this like Booktube Newbie Tag doesn't really convey what the channel is about because I may not always be talking about books. I'm probably going to be talking about crafts. I'm probably going to be talking about my disabilities and like, accommodating my disabilities and things like that. Um, so it will be like other than just books. But I think this feels like a good starting point to jump into YouTube. Um, so why did I start the channel? I started this because I really want to share more about the books that I like, the things that I've enjoyed, and it's one of those things that like I've wanted to do for a while. I guess like the second thing would be like, why did I start this channel? And I guess that's kind of like a lot of things. Obviously, the initial thing is I want to share more about the books that I love and the things that I love. But also kind of like I've put off starting a YouTube for a long time. I think because oh my God, yawn. Okay. I think because I have always been a little bit nervous to be on screen filming or like creating content like that. I've always created content in other ways. So like for the longest time I was a parenting and food blogger. I've run social media accounts in the past. So I've done a lot of the things that like allow me to be behind the scenes. But as I've kind of like worked on filming episodes for this podcast that we're like Alex and I are starting, as I've kind of gotten more comfortable talking in front of a camera, um, I've started feeling more like I could actually do this and I could actually create a channel where I talk about the things that I love. I should probably edit out me yawning, but honestly, like my spoons are kind of mid today and I'm not like 100%. I'm not like 0%. So yawns are going to happen. And if I edited out every single yawn, I would be editing forever. So you're just going to have to deal with me yawning a bunch as I film. Um, like when it comes to, um, like YouTube specifically, like YouTube, I think is the primary streaming service that I use. We subscribe to a lot of streaming services and things like that, but I spend most of my time watching YouTube or listening to YouTube in the background. And I really love to listen to people yap about the things that they love on YouTube. And so I'm hoping that maybe other people will want to listen to me yap also, whether they're like washing dishes or just laying down playing a game or something. Like me yapping might provide like good background noise. I don't know. Next question. What are fun and unique things that I can bring to YouTube? Um, I think because I'm not just doing books, which I think a lot of people on Booktube create amazing content that is specifically about books, and they are so, so good about that. But like for me, incorporating my love of crafting, my disability content, um, I feel like overlapping those things and my advocacy in the disability community and things like that are things that I can bring kind of a different perspective on sometimes. I mean, obviously, I know that booktube is a largely disabled space, a largely queer space, a largely crafty space. There's a lot of people on booktube who have the same kind of overlaps that I do. I think that, obviously everybody has a different voice. Um, in addition to like my other overlaps, I am an author, so I can provide insight into the publishing process. I've been published both at a small press and self-published. And I'm an editor. So I think sometimes I can provide some insight there or different tips there. So I don't know if I'll maybe talk about writing or editing at times. I might. But I think that there are certain things that I can kind of like bring other thoughts to the table that maybe fill not necessarily a niche that isn't being filled, but kind of an adjacent niche that I can provide my own voice to, if that makes sense. Mm, Yeah. What am I most excited for about my channel? Um, I love getting book recommendations from others and like seeing a glimpse into people's lives on YouTube, whether that's booktube content, whether that's other YouTube content, vlogging content, things like that. Um, again with the yawning, oh my gosh. Um, but for me, I'm kind of like excited to potentially be that for somebody else, even if just like one person finds this and they're like, I like the things you're recommending or I like the content you're creating. I think that would be really awesome just to connect with another person on here and like be the person recommending those things because I've gotten so much out of that community to like give my own voice to that community. I think is kind of awesome. Um, but it's also one of those things of like, this is like a new challenge for me. I've done written content, I've done like creative content, but I haven't done content where I'm speaking to a camera up until starting to record episodes for this podcast. And so this is like a new challenge for me. And the thing about having a podcast is I have someone to kind of like bounce things off of or like bounce my voice off of or bounce like a script off of or something. So I have someone that I can kind of like talk to and interact to. And this is like my first time just being like, it's me and I'm talking to a camera. And I don't have anyone else like filtering anything through. Like it's just me and y'all. And that's a new like challenge in a good way, I think. So I don't know. That's why I'm excited. Um, what book or series got me into reading? This is a difficult thing because I feel like if I think back into my time as a reader specifically, there was never a time that I wasn't a reader. So, like, if I go, oh, what book got me into reading? I mean, we could be talking Dr. Seuss's The Foot Book. That was like the first book that I really read and super got into. And so, like, when I was a kid, I had read The Foot Book like again and again and again. And that was kind of the book that a lot of people had read to me, and I was super familiar with it. And so when I would go up to like my grandmother and be like, look, I can read, and sit down and read the foot book, they would be like, yeah, you memorized it. Like, you're not reading it. Like, good job, but like, you're not reading it. And so I don't think anyone really like believed at first that I could read because I was like 3, almost 4. Like I crawled up into my grandfather's lap and he was reading that day's newspaper. And there's no way that I could have memorized, obviously, something that was published that day. And so I started reading out the obituaries and being very clear that, like, no, I actually can read and not just read, but read things that are much more complex than the foot book. I can figure out what these words are. I know not just what they are, but like what they mean. Um, and so it was then like it kind of clicked for everybody, like, oh, you're not just like memorizing things, you're reading them. Um, and so that's where I can go like, I can't pinpoint like this thing that specifically got me into reading or that got me started on reading. I can pinpoint things that like pull me out of a slump when I'm having trouble getting back into reading after not having the time or the energy or the spoons to read. And for like right now, reading manga, especially like cat themed manga, is a big thing that's pulled me out of my slump. So I will probably be recommending a lot of that for the time being. In the past, one thing that really pulled me out of a slump after I had not been reading for a bit was reading Ava Olsen's books. Her romance, especially like her yacht romance stuff, was really fun. I had just kind of moved out of the apartment. Like, I had just moved out from my mom's house when I got onto Ava Olsen's books. And one thing that my mom and I used to do is read or like watch Below Deck together a lot. And reading like these like yachty romance kind of things was so good for breaking me out of that reading slump. And they were kind of like a little bit on the shorter side. They were super romancy and super like intense and passionate. And that kind of really hit me where I needed to like be pulled out of the slump. And I feel like I super binged those. And now I'm reading the Pumpkin series and I'm super into that. So I feel like a lot of times when I say like, oh, what's the book that got me into reading? It's not so much about the book that got me into reading. It's what's gotten me back into reading when I've stopped reading, if that makes sense. And so yeah, you'll kind of see that happen. I think as we go through things, I might be like, oh my gosh, this is the book that like got me back into reading after a slump. Or that really like I couldn't put down when I had been having trouble reading basically anything for a while. Um, and so that's kind of my big thing. The next question would be what I would ask my favorite booktubers. And the thing is like for me is really hard to formulate those questions because like I have the people that I usually love to watch. Um, but when I'm watching them, I don't think of questions I would want to ask them. Um, I guess my main thing that I would kind of ask that would apply to all of them, like especially like Jay's Bookiverse or like all of the others that I kind of like watch regularly, would be what's a book I haven't read probably that I absolutely should? Like what needs to be moved to the top of my list of reading? Because the thing is like when I watch their channels, I watch for their energy and their personality and the things they read and enjoy and things like that. And so it's like, what do I turn around and say, what would you suggest to me out of like the pile of books that you've read or your TBR or whatever? Like, what do you think would connect with what you know about me based on like the energy that you bring to the table, the favorites you bring to the table? Because I do watch things from a variety of genres, if that makes sense. Now we have a few mostly rapid fire questions to kind of round out the video. Is like, what challenges do I think starting a booktube channel is going to be the hardest to overcome? And for me, the number one challenge is going to be consistency. As a disabled person who physically struggles with like energy and ability from day to day, like some days I'm super mobile, some days I can hardly get out of bed. Some days I have a really decent attention span. Some days I literally cannot like focus for 5 seconds. So I think consistency is going to be a real struggle, and making sure that I'm uploading on like a regular basis is going to be difficult. Um, but I'm hoping that maybe this is a way that I can kind of like push myself a little bit, or kind of like batch prepare content that I can upload in stages or something like that. I don't know. Where do I read? Typically, I read in my bed, which is right here. That's kind of why I decided to pick this place to film my first video, because this is where I like to read. I also read on my couch a lot. My couch, I actually inherited from my grandmother. Um, and my cats love to use it as a scratching post, so it's got like some threadbare spots that I've kind of like stitched together with bright embroidery floss, and it's literally just like enough to hold the stuffing in kind of things. Like, it is a hot mess, but it's comfortable and I love it. It's good for curling up with a book and some coffee. I like to read at my local libraries. I like to read, well, I don't necessarily like to read at the therapist waiting room, but I do a lot of my reading at the therapist waiting room because um my kiddo and I both have appointments there on a regular basis, and so I spend a lot of time like, oh, I'm waiting for such and such appointment. Okay, well, I'm gonna read this manga because it's short and quick and easy, and it is easy to pop into my bag and read here. Um, so that's kind of what I do. What books do I like to read? I really like to read romance. It's kind of funny because as an aromantic person, you would think I would not be that keen on romance, but I really, really, really love to watch other people fall in love and watch their experiences with love. Just because that's not something I personally feel super connected to doesn't mean I don't love for other people or watching love for other people. Um, so I read a lot of romance, especially queer romance, especially indie romance. Those are big for me. What does my collection look like? My collection is the smallest that it's ever been in terms of books. I recently did a big decluttering where we got rid of like 80% of the things in our apartment. It was a massive, massive, massive decluttering. And one thing that I had never really been willing to part with before is my books. They had gone with me through a move, which was really exhausting because I had like several hundred books. Um, they had they had been something that like has been a huge part of my life. Some of them were books that I had collected for years. Some of them were books that were new and I had yet to read them. But one thing that I've been thinking about a lot is how, kind of that thing that you see on TikTok and Instagram and stuff lately is how collecting and buying books is a different hobby than reading books. And I really wanted my hobby to be reading books, not just collecting them. Um, I wasn't utilizing my bookshelf space very well. I was really frustrated with the amount of stuff that I had on the shelves. I felt like I had a bunch of books that like either were on my TBR or like were just sitting there for a long time because it was like, oh, well, I can get to those later because I'm reading books from the library that have time sensitivity, whereas these books will be here forever. Mm. And so I sold most of them. I think I kept maybe 30 or 40 like that were precious favorites that it was like, I really love this. This was meaningful. Books that I had spent a lot of time annotating, books that I reread very often. Um, those are the books that I saved. I got rid of anything I hadn't read yet that was available at the library. I got rid of anything that I had on my TBR list forever and just was not enjoying. And some of it I got rid of just like without even going, okay, do I want to DNF this? Do I want to read this? But what I did is I made a spreadsheet of all of the books that I previously owned and marked if it was available at the library. So right now, one of my big goals is to read all of the books that I used to own and get through that TBR, because then with it being from the library, it will be more time sensitive. So today I just placed a hold on the first batch of books that I had sold and now wanted to borrow back now that we've done this big decluttering. So it's more that I don't want to hold on to as many physical books in my space. Um, I want books to be more of a thing where I enjoy them and love them and then move forward and don't necessarily hold on to them forever like I used to. Link below on how to follow me on Storygraph, but right now I'm not super active on any social media. You can check out my podcast channel where I co-host a queer media podcast with super unhinged, super neurodivergent takes, um, which soulfully Alex and I are launching soon or have launched, depending on when I upload this. So I will also have that linked below. It's called And They Weren't Roommates, and we talk a lot about BLs and GLs. So if you enjoy queer media, like the queer books that I'll be talking about here, you might enjoy that, where we will be talking about book to screen adaptations, where we will be talking about the shows that have us in a chokehold, where we will be talking about all of our favorite tropes and how they are done really well or not so well. So yeah, check that out. I think that's all I need to link. I think that's all I have for this. This is probably run too long anyway. I'm kind of a yapper. Sorry. Not sorry. This is my channel. I can yap if I want to. Um, anyway, bye.